Welcome back to Healing Mindset. I am Nazish, and today's conversation is the one that touches the most intimate places of the human heart. We are joined by Jonathon Aslay, one of the America's leading midlife self-love and relationship coaches. His work took a profound turn after the loss of his son, a grief that opened a deeper dimension of wisdom. That every relationship we long for begins with the relationship we cultivate with ourselves. Today, we explore what self love truly means and how emotional health shapes connection and why self worth is the quiet architect behind meaningful partnership. Jonathan, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me on, Nazish. I'm really honored to be here.
That is amazing. So, Jonathan, your personal journey through grief reshaped your entire philosophy on love.
Yeah.
How did that profound loss reveals truth about self-love that you hadn't seen before?
Yeah. So thank you. Um, well, a couple things. And if I need to connect the dots to get to where I'm at today, we'd have to go back 20 years where I was going through a divorce. I lost my high-end corporate job, and then the market crash of 2008 wiped me out financially. So in the span of a couple years, my identity was pummeled. I mean, literally, I used to go to bed wishing I didn't wake up for probably 5 years. And during that time, I briefly dabbled into personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. Um, and and only because there were things that resonated with me. Oh, I should mention therapy. But it wasn't until about 2009 where I began shifting my vocation as I used to be an insurance professional. um, Online dating was an addiction for me that turned into a profession of helping women understand men, helping women improve their dating profiles. And through that process, I began doing a deeper dive into personal development, self help, spiritual work, and therapy. And then fast forward till 2018, where my 19-year-old son Connor passed away in an accident. And it really began to open my heart to what does it really mean to love? And I'd been blogging about self-love right prior to him passing away. And I thought, you know what? I want to do a deeper dive into what does it mean to love oneself. And so I began writing my second book, which is affectionately titled What the Heck is Self Love Anyway, which is a journey of personal development, self help, spiritual work. And through that experience, birthed a desire to help people build the emotional scaffolding to navigate, grief and loss and breakups in the romantic realm, but more importantly, how to shine from the inner light within, from a self-examined life. So that's kind of my message for everyone, is to live a self-examined life, to live a life of not being the actor on stage, but living a life also being the person in the audience watching what's going on, being the director, and being the other stage members from that vantage point.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. That must have been really difficult time for you, and it really helps our listeners feel seen. Like healing often begins in those small, deeply human moments when we don't notice until later. Was there a moment when you felt your healing truly begin, or did it unfold in subtle, almost invisible shifts?
That's exactly what I was about to say. So as I reflect back, it wasn't, I mean, the humbling event of my identity being wiped out, through professional change, divorce, and then financial, you know, demise, if you will. That was the humbling event that began the journey. But I'd really have to connect the dots through doing the Hoffman process, doing insight seminars, doing neuro-linguistic programming, doing group therapy, also meeting with a therapist on a regular basis. they were all about rewiring my nervous system from an anxious, fearful place to more of an empowered place. It didn't happen overnight. And I know as people are listening to this, I'm sharing my story, but I want to say to everyone listening, we all have a story, you know, and my invitation is to examine one's life from where was I? How did I get to where I'm at today? Where am I at today? And how do I want to move forward in the most empowered, joyful way? And so I think it begins with a self examination, particularly what's your greatest fears? What are your fears, your insecurities, your judgments, your negative patterns, your limiting beliefs, and looking at it from an examined place. And a lot of people, it's interesting, and particularly in romantic relationship, they oftentimes point the finger at their partner, and their partner's pointing the finger at them. And self-examination is to look and say, well, there's three fingers pointing back at me. What do I need to examine within myself? And believe me, I've had to peel the onion on so many different layers of who I am. Um, but you asked, is there one specific thing? I want to bring this up because I went to bed wishing I didn't wake up for 5 years. I mean, like, that's how painful it was. And drugs and alcohol is what got me through it for a period of time. But it wasn't until I really opened my heart up to a significant relationship in 2011 that I began making a stand for my sovereignty. And in that, I had a very simple mantra. Okay. So somebody liked and cared about me, kind of made me grow up a little bit. And I had a simple mantra. I borrowed it from Walt Disney, and it was just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. In other words, the past is prologue. And while the past shapes who we are, I am not my past, particularly my identity. And for the men listening to this and for the women listening to this, for both men and women, but men more so, we tie our identity to our professional life. And what I realize is I'm not my professional identity. And I began part of the self-love journey. And by the way, for those, hearing the word self-love, let me make it, kind of give some context. Self-love means self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-reliance, self-discipline. But more importantly, wrapped in an understanding that we all have an emotional 6-year-old inside of us, an emotional 6-year-old inside of us that is scared. And self-love is nurturing that little emotional 6-year-old inside of us. And so it goes well beyond the buzzwords. It's really an embodiment of our sovereignty from a victor consciousness place. See, a lot of humans live from victim consciousness. It's always somebody else's fault. And that doesn't diminish, you know, experiences, but we can all come from an empowered place, from a victor consciousness place. And that's my invitation for everyone.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And it brings such, this perspective brings so much softness to the idea of healing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like it doesn't always have to arrive so loudly, but it is just so amazing.
I am still, in all fairness, I am scratching the ant's belly to my capacity to be aware of my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions and my needs, wants, and desires. It's all it's sometimes it's all like a stew, and I'm still just parsing it out. And when I say stew, I mean it's just all mixed together, and I'm still parsing out the vegetables on one side and the protein on the other side and that sort of thing. So, but once you choose to go a path of healing, you know, I believe we can peel the onion for our entire lifetime. And we're not gonna get it right in this lifetime, it might take, 2,000 more for all we know. Um, but I think to embrace life from a place of joy versus fear, man, that's a great way to live when you can wake up and just be excited about the day and go, "It doesn't matter what's gonna happen. I could flop, but I know I'm gonna get back up."
That is actually a very amazing perspective. And I feel like many of our listeners are gonna feel more motivated listening to your life story, your perspective, and your views on all these things. So, one thing that you have said that many singles struggle with self worth
Yeah.
more than they realize. What signs do you see most often that indicates someone is lacking true self love?
Yeah, so if we're going to talk about in the romantic relationship realm, and this is one of many signs. I think, and I've observed this for a lot of people who are dating, is that they blame their previous partner for the ending of the relationship. And while and I'm not here to diminish experiences of genuine abuse or violence. I mean, if you have to call a doctor, a policeman, or an attorney, then and it's rightfully so, I'm not diminishing that. But here's the thing. We all play a part in our life, and even a passive part is passive. And so by taking ownership of our part instead of the blame pointing the finger at others. Because when there's blame, it's a less examined life. And I think when people are in blame, they're in pain. And until that blame turns into a self reflective place where I go, I take 100% ownership of my part, then you're on the path of really growth from that point forward. I'm talking about romantic relationships. And the reason why I start with past, hey, if anyone, let's just pretend that I'm speaking to a 50-year-old right now, and you're going to be going on a first date tomorrow night. You had 50 years of life before you met this person. They know nothing about your history. I think and vice versa, you know nothing about their history. To get a sense of who a person is, we have to look at where they came from, at least get a glimpse of it. And that's why asking questions about the past gives you insight in their capacity to be emotionally mature. Because if someone avoids their past, they're either hiding something or they're in pain. If someone isn't willing to share, then they most likely haven't healed from their past. And it could theoretically mean, and I mean, when I say theoretically, most likely mean they're not prepared for something in the future. You just might be another training ground for them. And I'm here to encourage genuine discernment for people going forward.
I find it so relatable. Trust me, I feel like I am knowing so much from your talks about things that I patterns, few patterns that I have in my life. And I feel like a lot of our listeners will also be relating with it because it is incredibly relatable.
Well,
So,
you know what? And here's the thing, and I appreciate being able to share my story. And for those listening, I'm really inviting you to go to really examine look at your past relationships and ask yourself, what positive things did I learn about myself in each one of these experiences? How have I potentially healed from each one of these experiences? What was good about each one of these experiences? What was not good? People focus almost always on the not good instead of the good. But most importantly, what are you most grateful for? Because gratitude is one of the most powerful healing tools in our tool chest. And so a self-examined life looks at it from that vantage point. So, you know, that's part of the healing process is to look at your past experiences and take that ownership piece.
absolutely true. So, tell me something. How can someone distinguish between confidence as a performance and genuine inner self regard?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. You know, confidence oftentimes shows up as bravado. And how did you frame the second part? Self-regard,
Yeah, inner self regard.
inner self. You know, it's interesting. So I'm in a significant relationship. I'm with my life partner. Um, and I led with my insecurities. Like, I'm aware of my insecurities. I'm aware of weaknesses within myself. And when I said I led with them, I shared them. Okay. I didn't share all the good stuff. I actually shared what I think I could be my weaknesses, if you will, but not from a blame, like not from a poor me perspective, from a place of like, this is who I am. To me, that shows a lot more um bravery or vulnerability. I think vulnerability is the highest form of bravery. I think Brene Brown says that, or courage, I should say. And and that's really confident, if we can look at it from a non-judgmental point of view. But certainly people that lead with confidence, they go, well, this is the good thing I did, and this is the good thing I did, and this is the successful thing. And that's okay, that's your resume, but that's not who you are. Who you are is a being, and also to look at things where you are proud of an emotional um um what's the word I'm looking for? You know, from an emotional standpoint, like I'm really proud that I have a son who I have a really good relationship with. I'm very proud of that. Um, it's like, so look at our emotional accomplishments was the word I was looking for. We look at our emotional compliment or accomplishments with a sense of pride, um, but also look at our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities with a sense of pride. To me, that's true confidence.
That is actually very true. And this framework really gives our listeners a real way to assess where they stand emotionally, which is something I feel like this awareness which you also have been talking about is very important these days. And so, relationship often mirror our unhealed parts. How can someone use conflict or disappointment as a portal for deeper self understanding instead of spiraling into self blame?
I'm laughing because, I wish I could just give you this one thing to do and it's all going to make sense.
And
And
it will help us in a lot of aspects in our life.
yeah, I'm still scratching the ant's belly. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of journaling. I'm a big
Mhm.
proponent of journaling, but journaling both as the person who's experiencing it, but also taking a step back and look at it from the observer. In other words, as if a friend was talking to you. Okay. Now, I'm a big believer in having good, solid confidants in your life, it's whether it's a therapist, a counselor, a person in the religious realm, or a deep friend confidant that can give you perspective outside of your own vantage point. Excuse me, my nose is itching. Um, and so I believe having good confidants in our lives helps us in that regard. Um, and wanting to live and examine life, like you have to really want to improve emotionally. Like most people focus on making money will make me happy, you know? And I know there's people in, third world countries that make 1 penny a day and they're happy. And here in the United States, you could have people making $1 billion and they're miserable. So, and I believe true joy comes from individual empowerment, by overcoming our fears, our insecurities, our negative patterns, our limiting beliefs, and doing it from an introspective place.
I love that. That's like turning pain into information but not identity.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Um, your book blends spiritual teaching with a playful, light-hearted approach to self-love. Yes. How does that combination help people take the work seriously without feeling overwhelmed?
Great question. So, my book is a very simplistic book. I mean, I read The Untethered Soul, which is like reading something covered in molasses, swimming through spaghetti, and going to the deep end of the Marianas Trench. And what I mean to say, it's very deep. Mine's a very simplistic approach, but what I did at the end is I have my recommended readings, teachings, and mentors that I use to get to where I'm at today. The book was just a door opener, the invitation, and that's what I do. My invitation is for humans to take one step forward and find as many modalities as that interest you, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's going to a workshop, whether it's hiring a therapist, whether developing a real good mentor in your life. And anyone who's under, you know, 50 years old, I highly recommend you find someone 10 or 15 years older in your life and get a mentor, somebody who can give you from a wiser experience level what they experienced. And so that would be my invitation for everyone.
It's really refreshing to hear that everything that you're saying, and and the fact that healing doesn't need to feel heavy to be transformative.
No,
Which is
but it's gonna be heavy. Let me be clear. Let me just say this: like dealing with our stuff is heavy,
it
and
is. Some
and
days it is too tough.
yeah, and it's okay to go, "Oh my god, today's a day I just need to veg out and Netflix and chill because it might be too much." It's okay to have that. At the same time, when you begin to live and examine life, you go, "Oh, I get something else to work on today. I've got another thing to work on today." Because, we live here in the United States in a very performative, goal-oriented, materialistic world here. And I look at other parts of the world where their spirituality, their emotional well-being is the most important thing. Um, to me, I'd rather focus on my emotional well-being.
That is that's very amazing. We should all focus on our emotional well-being as well.
Yeah.
So, tell me, if someone is longing for a relationship, but they feel disconnected from themselves, where should they begin?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Where would you begin? Well, if you're listening to this right now, you're in the right place. Um,
Yeah.
so where do I start? Uh I was about to say wanting a real well, first work on yourself. I mean, in other words, build those muscles. You might want to go to a self-improvement workshop. You might want to go to a communication workshop. You might want to start reading books, those sorts of things. You may want to hire a dating or relationship coach. Might be a place to go to help you navigate, some of the terrain. Um, and then ultimately you got to get your hands dirty and do it. So I would join a dating app, only because these days it's the number one place to meet people and start interacting from a sincere place. Just go, you can start a conversation. Look, I'm a little scared. You know,
It,
you seem interesting. I just want you to know I'm a little bit scared. Can we have a conversation as two people as friends instead of the performative expectation of a relationship? And if we can take a little bit of the edge off and take the performance and entertainment out of dating and really start bringing in the heart, I think we're going to see a lot more improvement and happier people.
that is such a compassionate starting point.
Hmm.
And also, it is very generational friendly, I must say.
Is it? I don't know. You mean,
It is.
okay.
I feel like it is. I hope it is. And it also makes the path feel very doable and not like daunting. It makes it easy.
Well, the reason why I brought up why I was curious about generational is I am a tail end baby boomer, but I mean, I mean, on some level, I think we have to, we're evolving to recognizing that emotional health and healing is so important that this is really the first time in humanity that we should, I believe we'd be better off dating from a place of recognizing this and coming from a healed place and not a performative place like we have for tens of thousands of years.
It is. It is absolutely true what you're saying. So, Jonathan, before we actually wrap this up, please tell us, for anyone who wants to explore your work, your coaching, or your resources more deeply, where can they find you?
Well, thank you so much. It's been a true honor, and I appreciate your thoughtful questions. Really quickly, my name is listed here, Jonathon Aslay. Just cut and paste it, put it in Google. The first thing that will come up is my YouTube channel. The next thing that will come up is my website. The third thing will be my social media. If anything here resonated with you, feel free to go to one of those platforms. You could message me if you want to work with me or at least pick my brain. I'm more than happy to share and hopefully, help make a difference, make a big difference in someone's life.
That is amazing. I will make sure to include all these links into the show notes. So, Jonathan, this conversation has been absolutely amazing. And this conversation reminds us that love isn't something we find, it is something we cultivate, we nourish, and then gently offer outward. When we tend to our self worth and honor our emotional truth, our relationships naturally become more grounded, more authentic, and more fulfilling. If today's episode resonated with you, let it be a small invitation to treat yourself with more gentleness, a little more patience, and a lot more of truth. And if you feel supported today, follow us, subscribe us, and leave us a review. Your echo helps this circle of healing grow wider, softer, and more alive. Until next time, I am Nazish, and this is Healing Mindset. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.